everyone, in this video we will be solving basic trigonometric equations using the reference angle, and this is the first part. Before we jump into some examples, let's have a review on the basics of the reference angle. We remember that in these coordinates that we have here, the x represents the cosine of the angle and the y represents the sine of the angle. So pretty much if we want to have cosine 30, that is square root of 3 over 2. Sine 30 would be 1/2. Cosine 45 is square root of 2 over 2. Sine 45 is square root of 2 over 2. Cosine 60 is 1/2. Sine 60 is square root of 3 over 2. Now, how do we determine the tangent for each of these angles? Now, we remember that this, if we drop a line right here, this represents our y. And if we drop a line over here, in order that we can get to this dot right here to make this right triangle, this is the x. Now, if this is our general angle theta, we can go ahead and say that tangent is actually equal to opposite over adjacent. Now, in this theta right here, so that's tangent theta is opposite over adjacent. So in this theta that we have here, the opposite is y, so that we can go ahead and say that tangent theta is actually y over x. Since the opposite to this theta is y and the adjacent to this theta is x. Now, we also mentioned that the x represents the cosine of the angle and then the y represents the sine of the angle, so that we can go ahead and write our tangent theta is also equal to y, which is the sine theta. So I write sine theta right there over cosine of theta. So these are the three equations for tangent. Okay, so how do we determine the tangent for 30? So I'm going to show the work on the side right here. So let's take 30 first. So this is for tangent 30. Now we say that the formula for tangent is y over x, or sine theta over cosine theta. So in this 30 right here, our y is 1/2. So I write 1/2 on top. Our x is square root of 3 over 2. So then we can go ahead and simplify this fraction over a fraction. We can go ahead and say that that is 1/2 times, flip this and multiply across. So 2 over square root of 3. So this is pretty much equal to, cross this out, 1 over square root of 3. We can rationalize the square root of 3 here. So that will be 1 over square root of 3 times square root of 3 over square root of 3. What are we going to do is we have square root of 3 over square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3. So pretty much our tangent 30 is actually square root of 3 over 3. So this is the value for tangent 30. Now let's have tangent 45. So I'm just going to show the work on the side right here for tangent 45. So again, tangent is y over x. So our y is square root of 2 over 2 and our x is square root of 2 over 2. So square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 over 2 is 1. So pretty much tangent 45 degrees is 1. So I'm just going to put this inside the box. And if we want to determine tangent 60, so I'm just going to show the work right here. So tangent 60, again, that would be y over x, so that is square root of 3 over 2 over 1 over 2. So then we go ahead and, since we have a fraction over a fraction, we flip the denominator and multiply across. So that is square root of 3 over 2 times 2 over 1, because I flipped the 1/2. So we can cross out the 2 and 2 right here. So we can go ahead and say that our tangent 60 is square root of 3. So this is the value for tangent 60. Okay, so let's take this first example right here. Write two solutions to each of the following equations for theta is greater than or equal to 0 and theta is less than 360. So the theta that we're referring to here is the angle. Again, in some other textbook, they're using x. That should be fine. So theta is actually a variable that is referred to as the angle. Okay, so if we want to solve for the theta here, we can go ahead and rewrite this as sine theta is equal to, that's negative square root of 2 over 2. And so if we want the theta, we can set it up like theta is equal to the arc sine of negative square root of 2 over 2. So because we want to solve for the theta, we want to solve for the angle. So I want to isolate theta by itself. So we can set it up this way. Now, in order that we can solve for theta here, there are steps that we need to follow. The first step is to determine the reference angle. Okay, in order that we can determine the reference angle, I would like to bring this back. So we're going to use this in determining the reference angle. So what are we going to do is we look for the value here that is square root of 2 over 2. At the same time, this is a sine. We remember that the x represents the cosine of the angle and the y represents the sine of the angle. So pretty much if we want to determine the reference angle, we're going to look for this value. And so we're going to look for the y as well. So we will look for the y. These are the y values here. And let's see where is square root of 2 over 2. So the square root of 2 over 2 is right here. And that is on the 45-degree angle. So that means that our reference angle here is 45 degrees. So I'm going to write that as the reference angle 45. Now, after we determine the reference angle, we move on to the second step. The second step is to determine the quadrant using the acronym that I give you from the other videos. All students take calculus. So what are we going to do here is I'm going to write the quadrants here. So this is all students take calculus. Now, please remember that we are looking for a negative sign because the value here is negative and we're looking for sine. So I will write this as negative sine right there. So we will look for that negative sine value on these four quadrants. So we remember that all sine, cosine, tangent are positive. Sine is positive. Tangent is positive. Cosine is positive. So where is this negative sign? So all these two, they will have a positive sign. So the negative signs are here because in this quadrant, only tangent is positive and only cosine is positive. So that means it's on the third and fourth quadrant. So then I can go ahead and show the rest of the work here. So we are looking at the third quadrant, quadrant 3. And we are also looking at quadrant 4. So we will look for the formula for that angle using the ones that we have on the first slide here. Again, we're looking for third quadrant and fourth quadrant. So I will use these equations to solve for the angle. So in the third quadrant, that would be 180 plus the reference angle. So our reference angle again was 45. So that's 180 plus 45 and that is equal to 225. The other one right here would be 360 and then that is minus the reference angle because that's in the fourth quadrant. So 360 minus 45 is gonna be 315. So the theta that we have here would be 225 and the other theta is 315. So these are the two angles or these are the two theta that will satisfy this equation. Sine theta is equal to negative square root of 2 over 2. At this time, I would encourage you to pause this video and try this problem out on your own. And when you're done, unpause it and check your answer. Okay, so we go over the problem here. Again, we can rewrite this if we want the theta. So that would be cosine theta is equal to 1/2. And so if we want the theta, that is actually theta is equal to the arc cosine of 1/2. Now, we are going to have some steps in order that we can determine the value for this. The first step is to determine the reference angle. So the reference angle for this can be determined using this. So I'm gonna put that up there. So the reference angle is equal to, that's 1/2. So since this is a cosine, so we're looking for x, because remember the x represents the cosine. So which one has 1/2? And that is 60. So that means our reference angle is 60. And so we go ahead and say that this is a positive 1/2 and cosine. So we're looking for a positive cosine. So then we go ahead and move on to the second step. Determine the quadrant using the all students take calculus. So then I'm going to draw the 4 quadrants here. That's all students take calculus. So we're looking for the quadrant that has a positive cosine. So the positive cosine would be here. All are positive and the cosine is positive. So that means this is on the first and fourth quadrant. So I can go ahead and write that up here. So that would be theta 1 and theta 4. So let's determine theta 1 is actually just the reference angle, so which is 60 degrees. And theta 4 can be solved. Again, we use this formula that we have up here. So then theta 4, or on quadrant 4, that would be 360 minus the reference angle. So 360 minus our reference angle is 60. So then our value is 300. So then the two angle that will satisfy this equation, cosine theta is equal to 1/2, would be, that's the first one is 60 and the second one is 300. So these are the two angles. Did you get the same answer as this? Good. Perfect. Now let's move on to the next example right here. We are supposed to solve for tangent theta is equal to negative square root of 3. We pretty much have the same steps, but before we move on to the steps, let's set this up first. So if we have tangent theta is equal to negative square root of 3, if we want to solve for theta, that should be theta is equal to the arctangent of negative square root of 3. So the first step that we are going to do is to determine the reference angle. So we go back here. So let's look for the tangent that has square root of 3, and that tangent is on 60 because that one is not square root of 3, so it's on 60. So which means that our reference angle then is 60. Now we move on to the second step. We determine the quadrants using the ASTC, or all students take calculus. So looking at this, we have a tangent at the same time negative. So we are looking for the negative tangent on the quadrant. So let's see the quadrant right here. All students take calculus. So in this quadrant here, the tangent, the negative tangent will be these two right here. Because in this one, all are positive, tangent is positive, so it is on these two quadrant that the tangent is negative. So then we can go ahead and say that's on the second and fourth quadrant. So I go theta 2 and theta 4. Again, we are going to use the formula in the first slide. For the second quadrant, that would be 180 minus the reference angle. So then that would be 180 minus our reference angle is 60. So then that is equal to 120. And then the other one right here would be fourth quadrant, that is 360 minus the reference angle. So then that is 360 minus the reference angle is 60. So then that is equal to 300. So the two angles here would be 120 and the other one is 300. So these are the angle or theta that will satisfy this equation up there. At this time, I would encourage you to pause this video and try this problem out on your own. And when you're done, unpause it and check your answer. Okay, so we go over the problem here. So I'm just gonna set this up. Okay, so the two angles that will satisfy this equation, tangent theta is equal to square root of 3 over 3 would be 30 and 210. Did you get the same answers as this? 30 and 210? Good. Perfect. If you find this video helpful, hit like and subscribe for more math videos. See ya!